Welcome back to season 3 of For the Love of Humanity. I'm so excited about this season. I've taken some time to reflect on the last 2 seasons and what I have shared in terms of progress. And there were moments where I felt kind of uncomfortable about being vulnerable or about sharing my thoughts, experiences, emotions. And not because what I'm sharing is particularly vulnerable in general, but more so because this is stuff that in the past I've wanted to keep rather close to heart. So it's been a very cool thing to feel it externalized and show up and share from a place of bare giving and bare just wanting to relate to any human on the other end listening to this. And so I wanted to record when things were timely. I wanted to share when things were still fresh. I wanted to share, even though part of me knew that upon reflection, there is the option for feeling cringe about things upon reflection. There's that getting comfortable with knowing that in the future, you will have a higher perspective and a more expanded perspective, different views, different preferences, different ideals. And if you want to share with others, you have to make peace with that shift and make peace with looking back and seeing a difference. And that was something that really I had to work at, which, is why I say in the beginning it felt vulnerable. It felt vulnerable showing my growth in front of people. There's a part of me that would prefer to grow sort of underground in silence and present when everything is in perfection. Perhaps it's the Capricorn sun in me. Perhaps that's a number of things. Today I'm going to share a little bit about my human design and my astrology for those who are interested, and how I use that as perhaps a trigger or something to respond to or look at. And at the same time, I'm very clear that it is not all defining of me. And I would advise everybody to consider that even when they read something about themselves, it's a benchmark, and we can transcend many of the things we think are realities. They're just materialized constructs or materialized beliefs and ideas, and they are meant to be expanded beyond. We're not meant to start out one way and stay that way forever, including what we think is set in stone in our design and our genetics and our lineage and, the way we be and the way we show up. So I believe we're more fluid than that. So in this season, I'm going to talk about a few things. I'm going to focus a lot on leadership. I'm going to share tidbits of my current reflection, some big picture thoughts on how we're evolving as a human species and what that looks like to me, and how I see that, and how I've downloaded information on that or insight on that, and how it makes sense in my brain. I'm going to give you practical best bits of how I've gotten from there to here. And again, reminding you that anything I share is just something that's worked for me. And my hope is to invite you into belief that things can change, while knowing that you can borrow from other people, absolutely. But eventually things have to become your own. You have to embody them. You have to process them and bring them through, and you will make it your own. So everything that you take from another in terms of practice or inspiration, it is just that. It's a temporary scaffolding until you've internalized it and created your own, that often and should fit you better than the borrowed piece of information. And so that's what I'm hoping to share. So currently, the way I see my experience is that I am in the new now. Like, it changed. I'm on the other side of something. A rebirth occurred. And it's so interesting because I feel this etheric liminal feeling of the option of present future and past all at once, sort of swimming together. So I recognize that there are past states and that the body holds the memory of the past to a degree. I haven't, it hasn't become amnesiatic where I don't have any of the past sort of lingering in my purview and in my experience. But, and also I feel the future more strongly in my present. So it's like recollecting something you did when you were in primary school and knowing that that was a part of who you were at one point in the experience, but not feeling the impulse to re-enter it, or feeling so detached from it that you know it's not really partly part of your reality anymore. It's not real. So that's the space I'm in currently. I know it's new. I'm cognizant of it being new. I know there's a new chapter. I know things are like ripe and full of potential, and I'm accepting that in each moment, and it does feel a little bit Bambi legs. And I think in season 1 and season 2 I've felt this familiar feeling before, and I have to say it's felt like waves of contraction. So like a almost like a tooth coming in, or if you've had children or babies, it's a contraction where the baby's coming down the birth canal, and it doesn't just come down the birth canal and then pop out, unless you've had a few and it's and it's become quite an efficient process, and your body like relaxes into it and there's no resistance. But it feels as though there were waves where, not false starts, but I felt as though, okay, this is the coming out, this is the presenting, and then there's a little bit more that came up, and a little bit more to work through in terms of authenticity and what feels good and what feels right. And each time, I would say the gift and the benefit is that I'm recovering and remembering and encountering more joy. With each time I come out, there's the joy to fear ratio is harmonizing differently. It's balancing out. There's, fear feels very different to me than it did, let's say, most of my life. And then specifically between the years of 2017 and 2021, fear feels tremendously different. So the experience I'm having with this coming forward and presenting who I am now feels vulnerable and new, yet easy and full of acceptance. So I feel as though a page of unanswered questions or a book of unanswered questions have reached their settling point. Like they've been answered, and I've orgamied them. Is that even orgamied them into a boat and set the boat on the water to be reabsorbed by the all. Like it's time, it's ripe, I've sent it off. So all of the things that felt very pressing and feverish, and I need to know, and this feels uncomfortable, and when is it going to be over, and what does enlightenment look like, and when will I be there, and when will I feel it, and when will I feel up and over. And I've said this in previous seasons, there was this feeling in me that there has to be a plateau point where I reach this plateau and I pull myself up onto it and I can feel stability there. And it feels as though I've gotten there. And, many times I get rebuttals of like, you're never there. It's always a journey. And for me, this is both true and not true. And multidimensionality, just moving around here, multidimensionality is something that I have embraced as opposed to duality. We're living in a different experience. It's not one or the other. So there are many plateaus that we hit. There are many rebirth points. There are many bridges we cross. And then there are big ones. We're always at impasses. We're always at decision points. And there are demarcations, segmentations of big rebirth points and big change points and big shift points. And so there's something in me that just knew there was a changeover. There was a changing of the guard. There was a flipping over of something, regardless of people telling me it's a lifelong experience. It is. So it's like using this analogy of you're walking yourself across the bridge, and the bridge is you and yourself, and you're figuring it out. And it's almost like you're groping in the dark, you're blindfolded, but you're supposed to be. And it's supposed to be like this. And this is what I reckon to the dark night of the soul. And it can feel excruciating, and it can feel so deeply uncomfortable. And it can feel like everything you've ever known comes into question. And it can feel like you don't even know what a personality is for. And you can question your own mind. And you can feel deeply disenfranchised from yourself and your mental state. And you can watch other people around you who seem to be very clicked in and okay and fine and all right with their experience and safe. And it can be really, really disorienting to think, well, what is going on with me? And this is like the big bridge. This isn't like the momentary bridge of decision A to B, or which Y in the road to take, or I'm creating a new pattern so I can choose the new pattern or choose the old pattern. This is like the deep rebirth of who you are in totality. We've cut all the ties and all the strings, and we've gone up in this hot air balloon, or we're again crossing this bridge and we're not quite there to the other side yet, or we're crossing a river. Whatever analogy feels good to you, makes sense. It's that big one. It's the trip from caterpillar to butterfly. And when we think about caterpillar, how far can a caterpillar take itself in that form? Probably like a yard. We found some caterpillars in our yard. These big, juicy green ones. They're really cute. And you look at its body and you think this can't go far. You're pretty much restricted to what, like 50 meters, maybe, unless something takes you. I don't know. I don't know how caterpillars move around or what their migration is like. But in order to get anywhere further, the caterpillar goes into cocoon, completely dissolves itself, takes up a new form. And the intelligence behind that whole process, like think about that if it were a computer program that had to run that, if that helps you with that analogy. Like what are the commands that make that happen? Right? So this thing goes from something that's pretty located in a pretty small radius. Its function is, to eat, survive. It's got these little legs. It doesn't really go that far. It goes into a cocoon, some self-isolation, follows some sort of etheric blueprint to turn into something completely different with wings this time. Less legs, maybe the same amount, I don't know. And now it's able to migrate cross continent. Like that's a huge shift. The metaphor of the butterfly is repeated throughout esoteric texts, throughout spiritual wisdom, throughout modern storytelling, because it offers us such a rich, multidimensional analogy or metaphor for what the human potential for expansion and evolution looks like. So you go through this entire transformation where you lose everything, every semblance of who you were, and form into something new. And I wonder if butterflies retain the memory of being a caterpillar. Like, I wonder if their consciousness remains intact, so it remembers when it was a caterpillar. If there's a soul that carries over. And so I just find that to be so incredible, because the abilities, skills, and purpose of a butterfly is so different. Like monarch butterflies migrate south across continents. It's incredible. So thinking about that bridge versus the little mini bridges every day. I said, I'm going to do something different. I'm committing to something different. I'm making a choice here to do something different, versus my hands are off the wheel. It feels as though I've been frozen, but I've just been put into a cocoon, whether self-imposed, whether by the divine, and thinking of that, like there are times when we're in freeze because we've become complacent-ish. I never even want to limit somebody with that, but if we're being complacent, there's a fear somewhere. There's a comfort that needs to be addressed. There's a reason why we want to stay comfortable, right? So there's like varying degrees of procrastination, but then there's also trust in divine timing. And that was something that I struggled with throughout this whole season of transformation that I've been experiencing. And I'm journaling and I'm, why did it have to go so slow? And be so acute for me to experience. And I love to teach. I love to help people through their own process. I innately love to problem solve. I'm a 5-1 problem solver in human design, sacral authority generator problem solver. Left cycle cross, left, I don't know, cross of cycles, something, left angle cross of cycles. So this is like my thing in this lifetime. And to understand transformation at this level has been a gift. And for a long time, it was agonizing and I couldn't trust it. And I kept thinking, am I being lazy? Am I procrastinating? What's the difference? What's the difference? Is the divine timing at play? Because right now I really feel like it's not. I feel like it's taking too long. Where's my gumption gone? Where's my drive? Where's my white knuckle, get it done determination that I've always had? And I got to see this in different ways. I got to see, like, shoot, I've been clenching my jaw, I've been clenching my body. That's how I got things done in the past. And what a gift, but also a gift to see that that's not necessarily sustainable. If I think about my whole system operating in a clenched, contracted state of force is not ideal. It's not sustainable. And then I realized through masculine and feminine dynamics that that was a very masculine way of trying to force the feminine energy to produce for it. And so through this journey, I've been able to see masculine and feminine dynamics at play within myself and understand how they resonate throughout, the entirety of existence and also humanity. I've been able to use my human design as sort of a scaffolding to investigate myself. I have the force, power, majesty, gene key, human design experience, right? The gate 34. I have learning to detach, going from like clasping and grasping to detachment to celebration. These are things that have helped me look at where I became contracted and controlling and basically sublimating my power or using my power in ways that were not sustainable for my body, and embracing the fact that I really do enjoy being in the flow more than I enjoy knuckling down. And for a large part of my life, I would have this sort of not yo-yoing, but like pendulum swinging experience of being so free and so flowing. I have a Sagittarius moon and a Sagittarius stellium. My big planets are there: Neptune, Uranus. What else? I have my Saturn's in Scorpio. My Pluto is at 29 degrees Libra, for any of you astrology people. So it's been a real wild ride. And I've really been swinging back and forth between knuckling down and really putting the full pressure on, like using the pressure cooker, almost going with steam, like a steam pressure cooker to get things done, and then going completely free, completely not wanting to have any control or restraint and just wanting to be in flow every day. That really Neptunian, dreamy, etheric, see you later, not really here for a bit. And then anticipating coming back to that intense, pressured performance was like something that I felt sickened by almost. I really did not want to perform or come back to that state. So I've really had to look at my own internal feminine and masculine and make peace with the fact that they can work in tandem and harmonize them and balance them so that I wasn't going completely, out of this experience into an abyss, but also not going completely materially absorbed into structure and perfection and how it should be, and grinding and forcing. And so that has been a big part of my learning in the last couple of years. And it's been incredible lately to reflect on how far I've come and how things have felt. And one of my biggest takeaways right now is that it gets to be enjoyable. It gets to be fun. I get to have fun. I get to play. I get to make a life that feels so good. And I have to admit, the somatic work that I've been doing, the breath work I've committed to every morning for the last over a year now, every single morning I do breath work, and it's like 30 minutes or more with a meditation. It has been incredible. to learn physically. I understood conceptually how to shift my energy. I understood energetics. I understood why it's important. I understood the energy of everything. And the last year or two has been an intense embodied practice of energetics, of shifting energy, of using breath, of feeling into my body, having my body actually feel good, pulling all of my energy into my body everywhere, even the places that felt tight or barren or empty or pained or sad or grieving or tight or fearful or contracted or frozen, or like, this is my body felt like this for I don't know how long. I hadn't been paying attention. I didn't notice. And my body is, fairly healthy. I've always held the overarching belief that I'm healthy. I'm healthy, I'm good, I'm strong. Let's get it done. And so I didn't really notice until I started to have like hip stuff or like womb stuff, sacral stuff, big alchemization that had to happen in those areas. And embodying deeper, figuring out practices that felt good for me, that allowed me to go deeper into the cells, to feel into the fluid of my body, like literally feeling as though my body was like, let's say, a bag of milk, a milk bag. Like each cell has fluid in it. And just bringing my awareness to the state of that fluid. Is it moving? Does it feel frozen? How does it feel? Does it feel stagnant anywhere? So bringing in those practices and using my mind to assist with that, using my intuition, using my energetic intelligence and awareness, learning how to break up density in my body, energetic density, feeling my heart wall dissipate. And these are words I use that, are thrown around in contemporary culture and new age language, but I'm just using them so you understand what I mean. I'm not heavily attached to any of this language, but in order for me to convey to you what I was able to do in my body energetically, we've got to have some language around it. So feeling into those spaces, creating flow, creating fluidity, creating a home inside my body was huge, huge. And I remember my first somatic therapy session and I was like, okay, well, how long does this take? It like very type A, very Capricornian, get it done. My Lilith is also in Capricorn, 22 degrees, Capricornian degree. Lilith right there, conjunct my sun. My Chiron is in Taurus, 22 degrees, like very interesting dynamics. I had a very interesting chart with that Capricorn, my 7th house. So understanding I have a power drive, and it's funny because like my human design, the power, I have it 3 times. I have it, I think, with my Jupiter. Oh, I can't remember. I'd have to look it up now, but I have it 3 times in my chart, and machismo is big. And I realized, oh man, I didn't quite get it. But after looking into it so much, I'm like, oh, reading this stuff about machismo and interesting, very masculine woman at times. So this whole journey has been fantastic. I've come to recognize how deep the deconditioning and deprogramming process goes. And I would say it's so multidimensional because when you first come to terms with it, you sort of understand it. Like I understood it in grad school a bit, and I was like really cynical about the world and the state of the world, and how is anybody expected to exist like this? This is insane. We're all like working to live and there's not enough to go around. It really, gave me a reflection on the reality, but at the same time, I was overwhelmed with the energy of lack. And then I was angry and I was upset. And all of these things were, I think, naturally part of the process for me. But I didn't know how to move beyond it and release the anger I had about it. And then I didn't know how to accept the fact that I had aspired more. I had aspired for more. I wanted to live a life that was integrated with reality and also hopeful and positive and aspirational. And my son is in human design is 54, gate 54, which is gate of aspiration. It's actually greed, aspiration, and ascension. And so I can't help it. I want more. I'm very aspirational and I love living that way. And I understood that living in a world right now with so much hurt, pain, people healing, people not necessarily knowing how to heal, people being so entrained into quick fix and numbing and not wanting to fully be and wanting to keep busy, but like thirsty for authenticity and thirsty for goodness and thirsty for feeling good in themselves. Like, this was the challenge of our current experience as a human being and the challenge of our evolution to heal and move beyond, to heal and produce incredible things, to evolve into the next version of us that can create the most amazing, miraculous experiences, to evolve into understanding that we are creating. We're not only co-creating, but we're creating. And so to come to that and realize there's so many people that don't have the privilege of having their consciousness be able to absorb that understanding was really hard, because at first I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to be aspirational because I felt that it was an insult to people who were going through really hard times. But I also understand that I went through really hard times where I didn't even see a point to this experience. Why are we coming here on earth to experience this? What is this for? Yes, we love people. Yes, we get to have children. And trust me, the reverence of my own children and my family, kept me grounded in those times. But at the same time, I thought, well, how can anybody alchemize this amount of pain? How can anybody see the good once they've seen the bad? How can anybody feel harmony again with the world, feel like they don't want to get off this planet because of the way it feels when you tune into what's horrible or what's traumatizing? And I think what we're all feeling right now is the collective purge of the trauma and the horror and the depression and the sadness. And we're coming to the understanding that we are deeply emotional and that we cannot numb to those emotions, and we cannot push them down or sublimate them because they have an effect on the body. And I'm so grateful to be here on the planet at this time, because so many people are becoming awake to this and aware of this. And there's so many more people that have done their digging and done their alchemizing and done their deep work, and they're now in their building phase. And we all get to go through that. We all get to do that from where we're at, wherever we're at. But it takes a lot, and it's so worth it. It's so incredible. It's so beautiful to have hope and aspiration and to really push through and be on the other side of flipping over that state of feeling hopeless to hopeful, or feeling stuck to aspirational, or feeling like you don't really even know yourself and things feel hard, to, oh my goodness, like, it's clear water. I get to swim. I get to enjoy. Who said that life had to be like that? Like, the deprogramming work is so big, because when you start to do it, you look back and you think, oh my gosh, the limitations that set my perspective in a way that I didn't even realize what was an option outside of what I was experiencing. And if I did, I felt a rejection towards it. Or if I did, I felt, no, not for me. Or if I did, I felt there must be something shady going on there. Or, like, it's so interesting, because I've said in past seasons, jealousy is like an indication you want some of that. There's something inside you that goes, I want that. But as soon as you say, I want that, there's the programming that says you can't have that for whatever reason. And that's where the work begins, wherever you feel like something expands you, but then there's something in you that says, no, it's not safe to expand. That's where we're going. That's where the work is. And so that's where we are evolving as humans. We're evolving our emotional intelligence. We're evolving our energetic intelligence. We're evolving our spiritual intelligence, because that's where your innate, intuitive, internal guidance will take you to the next level. And we all have to do this. That's how we evolve as humans. We are pushing beyond the realm of what we thought it meant to be human, and remembering the full capacity of what it means to be human. There's been a governor, there's been a cap, there has been a pinch in the hose, a kink in the hose of what we thought it felt like to create with our energy and to be here and to materialize our desires, what's in our heart. And so that's what I'm so excited to talk about. For a long time, I thought I was here to talk about trauma ad nauseum. And then I felt a huge resistance to that as I was going through. I thought, well, because I'm going through this, this must be what I'm meant to teach. Because I'm having to heal myself with the help of counsel, with the help of therapy, with the help of healers, with the help of all the learning I've been doing, all the research, all the hours I've put in to getting to know my own body, all the time I've spent cultivating sovereignty and freedom and connection and humanity for myself, for others. Like I thought this is what I have to teach. This is obviously it, but it felt like almost like this is my burden to bear to teach this in a weird way. And not that when people teach this stuff or help others with this stuff, it's a burden, not at all. But for me, it kept feeling like, do I have to go over it over and over again? Do I have to revisit the past over and over again? Partly that was me not going to the depth fully yet. And partly that was me feeling into the fact that that wasn't necessarily where I wanted to stay or fixate. That wasn't where I felt the most expansive. And it was hard for me to trust myself because I had broken that trust, and not intentionally, but because overriding your intuition for years has the effect of shutting it down. And this is like, this. So coming to terms with the fact that I didn't necessarily want to teach trauma, but I wanted to teach aspiration, and I wanted to talk about self-sovereignty and spiritual sovereignty, knowing that there's nothing between you and your divinity. There's nothing between you and God, source, the universe, however you define it. We're really coming into an era where we're talking about the same thing in the end when we're talking about that spark of creation, that allness, that magic, that power, that consciousness, that thing that moves in all of us, that moves us, that animates us. We're talking about the same thing. And some people really, really enjoy giving it a persona, giving it a name, having various categories of what that expresses to them. And what I've come to understand is what you believe creates your reality. And that's a deep discussion. And that's something I love to talk to people about, especially when they have questions, because it pushes the edges and it pushes me to channel and download more of what that really means. But for me, I have hit a fullness around it that I don't question it. I just understand it now. I just know it. It's an intuitive wisdom. But what we believe creates our reality. What we think over and over again creates our beliefs. There's a truth that we know deep down inside that can be tapped into. We know how it feels. And when we bypass our intuition over and over again, we forget how it feels. And it's not our fault. And we're very externally focused. And in some ways, we've been programmed, consciously or unconsciously. I talk to my kids about this. This is an example I give them. I say, when you're born, you're completely dependent on me. And I'm like, you're dependent on me to live, literally, for your food, for your survival, for your warmth, for your emotional connection, all of that, for your thriving. You're completely dependent on me. And my job is to hand over that dependence and that self-responsibility to you over time in amounts that you can handle, in amounts that help you grow, in amounts that help expand you, so that by the time you go off on your own, you're 100% self-responsible in the most beautiful way. And you enjoy that, and you feel comfortable in that, you feel confident in that. And our time during teens is like a handoff, a back and forth of it. And at times I might think, oh no, I've got to retain the authority on this one because I just am fearful of the mistake you might make that will be detrimental. And there's you that wants to be sovereign and self-regulating. And I appreciate that. And I know that. So it's a dance. And I think that's like our relationship with the divine as well. And with this world, we're not just in relationship with the divine, source, universe, however you call it. We're not just in relationship with that. We're in relationship with the world humanity as we know it. The relationship of humanity is changing, growing, and evolving. How we know ourselves to be human, how we know ourselves to be self-regulating. We have the ability to regulate ourselves. We don't have to be regulated. It is my wholehearted belief that each and every individual at some point matures into the self-regulation of non-harming. I know it. I know it. It's who we're meant to be. It's our full potential. Beyond self-harming, every individual has the pure potential to radiate into reverence, into full-on expansion, enjoyment, genius. And it's not to say that we won't bump up against each other and encounter challenges and problems. We just won't solve them with aggression and brutishness and bullying and force and oppression and condemnation and vindication. We're moving beyond that, but we have to develop the emotional, empathetic capacity and the energetic intelligence to understand that process. And I believe we're right in the middle of it. I believe that's what we're experiencing. And I know there are things in the world that would have you believe otherwise. But look at how many people understand it. We're all coming to this on our own terms. That's the free will aspect. We all get to evolve at our own pace, whether that's slow, whether that's fast, whether it feels like quantum leaps. We're all evolving at our own pace. We have our own contracts of what that looks like. That's the free will part. We live in a free will world where some people still feel that aggression and physical force is necessary. And some might argue, well, it still is, because people still do things to harm one another. And all I'm saying is I believe that we are headed towards that being self-regulated. So I think this is why energetics, emotional intelligence are the next leap in our human evolution. We are developing these senses like eyesight, like hearing. This is a consciousness evolution experience where we are developing faculties of intuition, inner guidance, emotional intelligence, energetic intelligence that will feel akin to us just like eyesight. At some point, it will feel that regular, that innate, and it probably already has in many ways. We just don't remember it. We don't remember to go there and use it. It's been atrophied. It's been governed. It's been deprogrammed. It's been overridden by whatever means. And I've had some time in the, oh my God, we've been programmed. Oh my God, the media has programmed us. And I've been there. And while I don't think that that's, completely false, for whatever reason, like we all understand marketing. You've seen Mad Men. You understand that marketing is to get you to buy one product over another. And we understand that there are ethical marketing programs. There are, subversive marketing programs. And I think it offers an opportunity to strengthen your awareness and your attunement. Like when we first started getting random calls on our phones from random numbers, I'm sure we probably answered them. And now we are screening our calls and we feel into, or when you get notifications in your email that you've won a cruise or that you owe money or that somebody is sending you pictures with a link, and then you realize, do not click on any of these things. Like, I really feel for the people who are new to this, right? Maybe older generations who haven't experienced the internet in the same way. Sometimes my parents even are like, do you think this is real? And we're all learning, right? We're developing that intuition, that intelligence. And it's so interesting to me. So that's where I am. That's where I'm moving forward. That's what I am teaching. That's what I'm creating information on. That's what I'm here to talk about. I have, in terms of Aquarius placements, my 8th house is in Aquarius. I have my Mars, Mercury, and Venus in Aquarius. So I have a mini baby personal planet, Aquarius stellium. And my North Node and Ascendant is in Cancer. And so these things feel very natural to me to be sort of the antenna for what's coming next. It feels very natural for me to channel, to download. And so these are the things that will be probably more of what I talk about in season 3. And I'm going to continue sharing pieces of how I've learned to regulate my energy and how to balance and harmonize my energy and be aware and feel fully and nurture and nourish and be still and find peace in various degrees of situations. And I want to share how I do this, not so that you can say, okay, so it's 5 breaths every morning, or it's a half an hour breath work every morning. This is what I do. I know what it feels like. So I'm going to communicate in metaphor and in practical tools as best as I know how to share that and what I've found works for other people. But again, it has to be something you've calibrated into in your experience. You have to find your way through it. And then I really want to talk about how I see us crossing this evolutionary bridge, how I see everybody coming to this eventually, this awareness, this understanding. And it's been here for a while. Think about how long we've been talking about vibe. That vibe is off. That person's vibe is off. I was feeling weird about the situation. It didn't feel right. Something didn't feel right. That was like our intuition perking up, turning on, like lighting up. Imagine it's been sort of turned off for a while and it's now lighting up. And we've got to get used to it. And in the beginning, we might misinterpret it. We might think we're feeling one thing and get confused. Our body might be interpreting signals. And on top of that, we might have programs running that get our wires crossed about what we're intuiting. And it's not a problem. It's all okay. We're figuring it out. It's okay to make mistakes. It's not a problem. We're not limited just because we're learning. This is a progression. Evolution is rocky, but it's also graceful in the sense that we are surrounded by grace when we're learning and when we're going through this evolution. We're not expected to be experts and masters instantly. It is a process we learn to master. And so we're walking through this with one another. And one of my sort of big themes is energy first. One of the themes in my life is energy first. And I understand that we create in the energy before it's materialized, right? The experience of anything is a thought first. So we want to make something, we want to sculpt something, we want to paint something. It comes to us in some sort of visionary, energetic, intuitive hunch, hint, blueprint, something. Even the way a baby's created, energetic first, and then created in the material. So knowing that, we're developing our energy readers internally. We're developing our ability to read energy, to suss out energy, to feel into energy, to discern energy. We are learning to intuit energy. We're learning to use energy. We're learning to compound energy. We're learning to conserve energy. We're learning to metabolize energy. All of this is helpful because we can start using our intuition even more. We're self-regulating beings. We have the ability to self-heal. We have the ability to self-regulate. We have the ability to self-determine. We have the ability to self-lead. We just need to remember how. And we just need to develop the faculties and tools that makes this feel easier, because it is natural and it is innate, and yet it is our next evolutionary jump. So it is something to get comfortable with. And that takes some deprogramming and deconditioning and reprogramming and trusting. It's like, I don't know, so much of this game is learning to trust yourself through the groping in the dark stage, through the making mistakes stage, through the feeling yourself in a new way stage. And I think when we have that self-love and grace, we go through it easier. And remembering that there are certain limitations that we are going to experience in this process. And it doesn't mean we're not meant to evolve and expand beyond those limitations, but it does mean that we're meant to see something within those. We're meant to either use them or transverse them or traverse them. And it's going to be different from situation to situation. Sometimes the limitation is there to stop us. Sometimes the limitation is there to grow us. Sometimes the limitation is there to strengthen us. Sometimes the limitation is there to test if we really want this thing, or develop a new strength or develop a new way around it. And that takes a huge amount of trust in your own intuition to know what to do when, and a whole lot of self-forgiveness to know that if you've gone the wrong way, there isn't really a wrong way. If you've done something and you're like, I get what that was saying before. It wasn't meant to be like that. It was meant to be like that. So you learn that lesson. So you learn that thing. So you picked up a piece of information. If you can continue looking at the journey like that, you're always picking up a piece of information. You're always calibrating to the new. You're always able to pivot and keep going. Then it becomes much more easy to navigate. And so I want to leave you with this understanding of limitations, like to look at limitations as a gift, and also to understand that the limitations that others set, if they don't feel right to you, they're not for you. So if somebody says, no, you can't, you're not going to be able to do that, or you're not going to be able to evolve that, or you're not going to be able to heal yourself, or you're not going to be able to whatever they're saying, if that doesn't feel right to you, it's because it's not right for you and it's not the highest truth for you. I personally now do not take on other people's limitations as my own. If they think something's impossible, that's not my business. That's not for me. I'm living in a very expanded way, and I'm practicing more and more every day to move beyond constructs, limitations. And as much as I love human beings and as much as I love other people, other people's limitations or limited perspective on what's available here is not for me. And I wouldn't live by somebody else's limitations. It's like knowing that I've been able to do something, I don't know, lift a certain weight, and then somebody saying it's like literally impossible to lift this, but you know you've lifted it. Why would you consider that person's perspective on possibility? And it took me a while to realize I don't have to go back and learn lessons I've already learned. So this is an interesting intro podcast to season 3. I've been sitting here pretty casually and off script. And the next ones I think will be a little more organized, let's say. Thank you for being here. If you've been here for all 3 seasons, thank you so much. If you're just finding me, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy to be here with you. I'm so happy to share with you my experience. And if it's inspiring you, have at her. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.